have a standing priesthood of the Levites, if we don't have a functioning temple, are we still required to bring the tithe? Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah and a shift taking place in the middle of the week. The website I normally consult for scheduling of which Torah portion is to be for each week said remote. Challenged on that a little bit today, got to looking around, and other websites, most of them were saying a second week of Passover. So we're going to pause remote after 2 days, and we'll go back next week and pick that up. And for the today, tomorrow, and Friday, we'll continue with some Passover-related readings. Among the traditional readings for the continuing of Passover is found in Devarim or Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 22 and 23. It says, "You shall tithe without fail all the yield of your grain that the field brings forth year by year. And you shall eat before Yahweh your Elohim in the place where he chooses to make his name dwell, the tithe of your grain and your new wine and oil and of the firstlings of your herds and of your sheep, so that you learn to fear Yahweh your Elohim always." The goal here for tithing and giving is to rejoice, to celebrate Yah's faithfulness, to provide an increase for those who are in lack, and to demonstrate our trust in a righteous, set-apart fear of him. So, since we don't have the temple and the Mishkan is not standing, we should just let it lay aside because there's nowhere to take it, right? It's interesting that the argument or strong debate, at least, about tithing and giving exists so readily and so frequent in the body of Messiah known as Hebrew roots. But it's not unique to this particular community. It has been a long-standing argument. I remember as a child being raised in the American Pentecostal church systems, how that it was argued or debated in my hearing whether one who did not tithe and support the local church, whether they should teach Sunday school or sing in the choir or be an usher who actually took up the money. How anyone knew who gave what, I don't know. I don't know who gives at House of David. Don't need to know. The idea is, though, that you should support that which is local to you. Where you're being fed, where you're receiving your increase of understanding, where you're being trained to serve, there needs to be some sense of support there. So for all of you who are a part of a local assembly, even if it's just a handful in the living room, do something, share something, give something to support toward that. Even if you're in someone's home, it's their electricity, it's their water being used, it's their facilities that are being used. There's nothing wrong in giving something to support that. When we talk about the tithe, we're talking, though, about a specific offering. This is the tenth. This is that of that which you have as increase. Whether you measure that every pay period or by the month or by the 6 months or year, ever how you do that, there needs to be a giving of the tenth. Now, one might argue, again, we don't have the priesthood, so what do we do with it? Why would we be legitimately required to give? It's the adaptation of the Torah to what it is that we have available for us right now. And I'll give you a few instances here. Especially among Hebrew roots community people, and the men in particular, we tie our seat, most often what I have seen, unlike our brother Yehuda, who wears a talit katan under their garments, and some allow their seat and that particular style garment to hang on to the outside, some tuck them on the inside. But Hebrew roots guys, predominantly, we tie them to our belt loops. and we walk around with them hanging off of our pants. And it's open for people to see, but it's also open for us to touch with our hands as we reach for our pocket knife or our wallet or our keys or our change. And it reminds us of who we are and what covenant that we walk in and how we to order our lives. It helps us to demonstrate righteous character, at least it's supposed to. Feast days, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, Passover, Pentecost, and Feast of Tabernacles. The Torah says 3 times a year you're to go to Jerusalem and you're to worship at the temple. We don't have a temple. And for us to go up onto the Temple Mount would be a cause for probably a riot with the numbers of us that would be there. What do? We make an adaptation. For some, that Passover, that means meeting in your homes. For others, as we do in a larger group, we make adjustments because we're in exile. We do the best we can with what we have. These 3 pilgrimage feasts, we don't go to Jerusalem, we stay home. At Sukkot, what do? We don't have a temple to stand before, and we're not to erect one here in exile, so we relive the wilderness experience that it is to remind us of, and we camp out in our mobile sukkahs, more often on our RVs or our tents. So what are we doing? We're doing the best that we can. That same spirit of adaptation and working with what we got, following the Torah as far and as close as we can also apply to the tithe. And while we do not have a standing Levitical priesthood in which to contribute to, among the work of the priesthood is to teach and to train people in the Word, especially in the Torah, and especially in the realm of helping folks to understand what's clean and what's unclean. Those who do such work should expect some sense of return. Now, whether that return is monetary or whether that return is encouragement, it is at least intercessions, one would hope. Sometimes it's personal giftings, how it works. But there are men and women who have given themselves to the teaching, training, and equipping of the body of Messiah. The 5-fold ministry gifts have not been done away with. The act of an office of eldership has not been done away with. Those who are called to oversee a local congregation, their role is still vital and it's important. We may have gotten angry about doctrines and positions and abuses in our previous settings, but we're called out of that and we're called to be now the functioning body of Messiah. Are people perfect? No. They're going to make mistakes. Are all leaders going to lead well? No, not necessarily. Just because someone can teach well doesn't mean that they can administrate well. Because they know how to run and organize, it doesn't mean that they know how to teach, equip, and train. It takes everybody doing their own part. But to find a place where you can sow. I personally, and my wife and I, believe in tithing and giving. And I seek to be faithful in that. I need to be even more faithful in that. I give. I don't always give to the exact same source, but that which I give from one resource to a source. I try to put money where I'm supposed to put it. I just leave it as simply as that. But I encourage you, take the tithe and give it to Yah, rejoicing, celebrating Him for His faithfulness, His loving kindness, His mercies, so that the needs of others can be met wherever it is that you're sowing, and that you're demonstrating, I trust Him. Let me encourage you, if you're a part of a local assembly, even if it's just a small group in a living room, give, support, and encourage. and watch Yah return back to you that which is overly abundant for your own need. More tomorrow. Till then, shalom.